For this is your SPaG for week 11. We're going to do a spelling test and then we've got planet. Okay, so listen really carefully, split up the word into sounds carefully and check the word once you've written it. So the test. Number 1, irresponsible. Abdul's behaviour was very irresponsible. Irresponsible. Two, illegible. My handwriting is so untidy that it's almost illegible. Illegible. 3, irresistible. Many people find chocolate cake irresistible. Irresistible. 4, illiterate. Some adults across the world are illiterate. Illiterate. 5, irrelevant. The choice you make is sometimes irrelevant. Irrelevant. 6, next one, illegal. The police monitor for illegal activity. Illegal. 7, next one, illicit. Illicit products were confiscated by security. Illicit. 8, irregular. The apples in the pack were irregular in size. Irregular. 9, irrational. Tobias has an irrational fear of birds. Irrational. 10, illogical. Parking far away from the shop can be illogical. Illogical. Okay, well done. Here are the answers. Irresponsible, illegible, irresistible, illiterate, irrelevant, illegal, illicit, irregular, irrational and illogical. So planet. I split up the first 3 paragraphs. You could use your paragraph titles into the approach, so the approach to the dragon, the response where he first thinks about fighting back, and the lucky bit to do with him falling off the roof. So I'm just going to talk you through my planning and then hopefully that will help you with yours. Obviously, I've just written down my ideas to start off with. I haven't even looked at the SPaG, so once I'd written down all my ideas, I'd go back and make sure all of these SPaG things are in. So, in the distance, I heard the dragon hurtling towards me. I quite like the word hurtling, just to say that he was coming really quickly. In the distance is a nice way to start. I could also probably say next to the horizon, or I could say something about hearing the dragon's wings, thinking about the different senses rather than seeing it. Maybe just you heard the wings coming for you and you knew there was no escape. Linked to that, number 2, I've put that you could describe the dragon as inescapable death came for them, or the inescapable force of nature flung itself forwards into the sky towards the town. And I've had that bit of speech. I knew he would come. In the actual waggle, it says the town, he's coming for us, but I have put in I knew he would come to try and give it a little bit more detail about the character. He's clearly a little bit wary. In terms of the response, so the first thing he does is he seizes his bow and arrow and he runs. Now, obviously I've put that as an ing starter because it's just made for that. That's the first thing he does, the most important information, so seizing his bow and arrow. Obviously I wouldn't just put bow and arrow, I'd probably put long metal bow and thick dragon bolts or something. And I've got to probably say where he's running to. He probably needs to say, okay, he ran along the buildings, or he ran towards the centre of the town, or he ran towards the tower, you could say there. Some sense of why he's running. Maybe he's running while he's forming a desperate hope in his heart or something. The second one, the important thing about trying to create tension, which this is, it's trying to create a sense of fear and stress and importance into every action, is to get a mixture between short sentences and long sentences. So I've put a really, really short sentence in here. Every second counted. Every minute counted. just trying to really sort of get home the immediacy of all of this. It's only happening over a range of about 3 minutes. It's not happening over any larger amount of time because the dragon moves really quickly. So it's really important just to get the tension in there. So think to yourself, is it important to have like an extra small sentence? Can I have, with horror, I waited a bit more or something, just so you got your really short sentences. Number 3, I've put, I had to reach the tower, and I put the thought in. Now, that's probably not what he'll end up saying. He'll probably say he saw the tower in the distance. I've got to make it, he thought. I could reword that in many ways, but the speech is really important because it makes me feel like it's still from his perspective. Number 4, twisting sideways. I wanted something about the importance of what the dragon is actually doing. So something to do with he saw vicious arrow of fire striking the people below. We originally had the vulnerable buildings. Something about the destruction that the dragon is causing. He saw the destruction or something, so that it feels a little bit more vicious and a bit more scary. 5, as they screamed, I pushed myself onwards. So I'm linking the fact that they're screaming to his determination. The original one had something like, all around me people screamed in agony and fear. Something about how scared everybody is, and then contrasting that with what he's doing, because he's not sitting there screaming, he's doing something. Number 6, I don't know how I'm going to start that sentence. I need to think about that in more detail and go back and add it in, but SPaG's claws ripped the tiles and he fell. Now, I looked at this when I was about to plan it and thought, I don't know why he saves himself at the end of that paragraph, because it's quite a nice cliffhanger. He's falling, it's over, he's not going to manage to succeed. So I've started the next paragraph with him pulling himself back onto the roof because I felt like that was a change, which is the reason why I changed paragraph. So number 1 on the 3rd paragraph of Lucky is, at the last second I stabbed the roof with an arrow and clung on. So basically to get in that idea that he hasn't actually fallen to his doom, he's still got a chance because he's still actually on the roof. Wary and frightened, he pulled himself back up. Now you could do the yet determined, you could think about different pairs to put in there, but weary is quite a nice one because it says how tired he is, but he's still frightened, he still wants to do something. I'm not sure frightened is the right word because he is scared, but he's also carrying on trying, so maybe I should look for a better word there. And then I need to get him actually racing to the tower at that point. There's enough messing about throughout the rest of the town, he just needs to get there. Okay, so if I first of all look back and see what I've used, I knew he would come with speech. Okay, it's not actually on this list, but it would be nice to have it. Okay, seizing his bow and arrow, that's an ing phrase. Every second counted, have to reach that small speech. Twisting, that's another ing phrase. As they scream, that's a subordinate conjunction that starts a sentence. SPaG's clause, that's the possessive apostrophe. Okay, weary and frightened, that's a pairs sentence. At the last second, I stabbed the roof. That's really nice noun phrases actually. The last second you could have as a noun phrase. There's more that needs to go in there. So coordinating conjunctions, subordinating conjunctions. I saw a wobub. We've put in one, but the reason why that's on that list twice is because the bottom one is just in the sentence rather than at the start of the sentence, which is the reason for this one. Okay, that one's at the start of the sentence. Coordinating conjunctions, that's your fanboys. That one should be easy to add in, just he's grabbing something and he's thinking something else. It cannot count as this seizing his bow and arrow because you need to have a verb on both sides of the and, otherwise it's not a conjunction. Okay, so that's not an example of a conjunction. If I wanted to put one in, I could do twisting, he saw a vicious arrow far strike the people below, and he did something. I could add it on. Prepositional phrase, that tends to be things like with, which we use in class. You could also do in. The at the last second will probably count as a prepositional phrase. Okay, and I haven't got any ed emotions. Frightened is sort of there, but it's a pair sentence, so I'd want one on its own. So maybe just determined would be quite a nice one. So I could go back and add those in. Okay, so you've got that first three paragraphs. Okay, we're going to look at the others now. So here are the last few paragraphs. Now, the original waggle is quite long, and it's entirely up to you how much description you put in. to be honest, the more you slow it down and put in like a lot of short sentences, the more tense it's probably going to feel. If you rush and try and do a short piece of writing, it'll probably feel less effective because there'll be jumps in the cohesion. So suddenly he'll be firing an arrow, then he'll be looking out for the dragon. There'll be no sort of overall cohesion. So think about adding in more sentences. This is the bare minimum. Okay, so the next paragraph is failed. He searches for the monster. At last he caught a glimpse of the creature. Now try not to just do dragon, dragon, dragon all the way through because it gets quite boring for the reader. So try and vary the word. These should be noun phrases, not just monster, not just creature. It should be sort of terrifying, destructive creature or something. Third one needs to say something about him firing arrows, but the skin of the dragon was impenetrable. Now another word for skin is hide, and that's when you're talking about animals. It's their hide. Impenetrable. If you can penetrate something, it means that the arrow can pierce the dragon and like effectively stab the dragon. If it doesn't work, then the skin must be impenetrable. Okay, so if you'd like to use that word, that's what it means. Advancing. So he realized the dragon was gazing at him, so you could sort of do terrified, or he suddenly realised that the dragon knows exactly where he is, that he's coming for him. That's quite a scary moment. So think of maybe a pair sentence or an emotion there. Then maybe the dragon's going to give a burst of fire, but it misses. I mean, in the original Waggle, his claws tore through the wooden tower above the head of the person, and it all tumbles into the river, and he feels a bit hopeless. But if you want to do it a bit quicker, then you could say, well, the dragon aimed for him but missed because he jumped aside or something. With rising despair, because he thinks he's lost, he constructs one last bow and puts the arrow on it. Maybe something like feeling like it's his last chance or something. The next paragraph's hope. As I gazed at the dragon, I suddenly saw something. Now, I'm not immediately telling you what it is because I'm trying to create that sense of tension. I saw something that grabbed at my heart. My heart pounded. Could it be? All those different sentences before you say, oh, by the way, there's a gap in his skin. Okay? Don't go straight for it, otherwise it's not going to be really scary. It's not going to be kind of, oh my goodness, that's amazing. The reader won't care. Okay? So have a couple of sentences in there, nice and short ones. So you can see I've put a question, try and vary it. I've tried to talk about how he feels, his heart's pounding. Okay, in the middle of his scaly side, one scale was missing. Okay, so I wrote that and then thought, well, if I'm about to say the word scale, then I don't want scaly here, then I want thick or something. So just think about how your language moves. The scale is one tiny piece of his skin. So effectively, if they get the arrow in there, then the dragon will be killed. If he gets it anywhere else, he'll miss, which is the reason why in the Waggle it has a slim chance, because it's still not a very good chance of defeating the dragon. He has to have very, very good aim, and he's only got one last arrow. Okay, so final paragraph, he needs to talk about firing the arrow, okay, with a final burst of determination, or with his eyes shut or something, or gazing really hard at the hole in his side. If you want to do a final sentence saying whether he wins or not, you could say the dragon fell into the river below, or the dragon smiled evilly as he continued his thing as the arrow bounced off him. Okay, it's entirely up to you. I didn't say in the Waggle whether he defeated the dragon or not, but I'm sure you could. Okay, so try and use really interesting vocabulary. Try and make it kind of scary and interesting for the reader. And just remember at the end of your planning to go back and double check all this SPaG. Okay, you should know how to use all of it. For instance, just remember that if you're talking about your progressive tenses, there's some really nice stuff in here. I mean, dragon was gazing is past progressive. Okay, so there's a couple of different things that you can put in. Good luck.